Sunday Live is here with the Average Joe Sports Show. Gary Sharp, Bill Dolman, Chris Schmidt, Elijah still on assignment in Los Angeles as we get you ready for Nebraska OU round 2. Fellas, how we feeling? Will it be a long day of baseball for Nebraska? Able to make things happen against Holy Cross. We'll start there. We'll take you up till first pitch, unless we have one more thing or two more things or three more things. We'll get plenty of baseball covered. We'll get our shout-outs going with the Average Joe Sports Show. Appreciate all of you for subscribing and liking. You can also watch on Twitter, AJ Sports Pod, AJ Sports Radio. How's the weekend been? Been pretty good baseball, and Nebraska responded, fellas.
We talked yesterday. I thought Ty Horn, who, by the way, I would not hesitate. He is your ace for next year. I would lock him into your Friday night. And if McConaughey comes back and he's a great Saturday guy, man, you're ahead of the curve. But he's a big-time pitcher. And, they finally got key base hits when they – like Haligso's hit when they needed him. I'm very interested in Will Walsh pitching today at the top of the hour because Oklahoma took a beating yesterday. And I don't know – Nebraska may win today. I don't see them beat North Carolina twice. Heck, I don't see it's going to be tough to beat them once. But North Carolina is really good. But I think the fact that Nebraska bounced back, they're playing on Sunday. Other than going 2 in the queue, I think this has been a good weekend. But, man, Ty Horn looked good yesterday. It'd be nice to get him another start this year. I don't think that's going to happen. But I'd put him in your Friday slot for next year.
The fact that Nebraska is still playing and Oregon is not, it's just an amazing turnaround over the last 3-4 weeks of the season and the last week, given that Nebraska started the Ducks slide. But look, that was a gritty win yesterday, and they got the timely hit when they needed it. And Haligso came through, and they seem to have had somebody's been a hero in one way or another. There hasn't been that consistent guy really all season long. Let's face it. But throughout this, what are they now? 14-5 or so in their last 19 games, something like that. Yeah. In each win, Swanson's had a couple of nights where he's come through, but there's somebody steps up with a big hit. I thought that was Haligso's biggest moment of the season, and he comes through in one of the most dramatic. Was it the 8th inning when the bases loaded and Broderick, who'd been all over the place, induces the double play.
Yeah. That was a little tense.
Yeah. It just like the last couple of innings just kind of encapsulated the last month of the season for Nebraska. And when Broderick was supposed to be the guy and then he can't find the zone, but in one pitch gets out of it. You thought when Broderick came in, okay, it's going to be – nope. Matter of fact, it's not going to be okay.
Yeah.
But he got the one pitch, and Haligso got the one hit, and they got the one win. And everything is uphill in Chapel Hill. And the number one team in the country, or at least one of the number one teams in the country. So whether Nebraska moves on, come on. But it's been a last good month of the season for Will Bolt.
It's been fun. You're both spot on with the heroics. And I was watching ESPN Plus, and one of the announcers touched on, all right, just one all Big Ten performer. It was Broderick, but that kind of is a statement to the team aspect of just what Nebraska is. Listen, we all were really high on Ty Horn going into this season. You're 0-4 to start out, but I really think it speaks to just his mental toughness and Rob Childress. The pitching staff really rounded into form. You expect that from Coach Childress. He expects that. I would love the opportunity to just NFL Films for years has thrown out the mic'd up portion of the season and how you reaccount the 1990 Giants, right? There's Parcells just MFing dudes and going off. And I want Rob Childress mic'd up going to the mound because he just goes there and it's a quick chat. It's a nice little pat in some instances. in other instances, it's a quick discussion, hand me the ball, and here comes the next guy out of the bullpen. But I would love to hear just how direct Rob Childress is on the mound with fellas, whatever the situation. That'd be great theater, I think. He gets results, man. He's been incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it's been kind of an uneven year. I think, your decision making, who's going to come into the game. And, I think they whittled down who they trust in the last month, kind of alluding to what Bill was saying about the last about 20 games. It's not just everybody gets an opportunity. They're very selective on who gets to pitch. And I think it took a little bit longer than normal for Rob to do that. But I know this from knowing Rob for so long, is he's honest, man. He will not BS you. I mean, he'll tell you whether you're good or you're bad. And he's they call him Mr. Strike Pumper for a reason. You got to throw strikes or you're not pitching. So they've gotten the response. I think it's been nice to see Ty Horn emerge. Ty Horn has had the stuff in the mid-90s potential, and they've kind of harnessed it a little bit, and they've taught him how to pitch. So that was good to see today. I'm very intrigued by Will Walsh today. I think Will Walsh is a very smart pitcher. He's not going to continually blow people away. And, this is an Oklahoma team that we saw on Friday night. They got some good bats. They take good at bats. They swing at more strikes than they do balls. So you got to flood the zone. But I like Walsh today to give Nebraska a chance. But again, I think it's one of those days where you're going to have to score a lot of runs. And Nebraska hasn't necessarily scored a lot of runs, back-to-back days where they've scored 4. So today might be a day where you got to get to 6 to 7 runs. And if you win a game 7-6, you play tonight. And, who knows? North Carolina is really, really good. But just the fact that they got to Sunday, it didn't go 2 in the queue, I think is okay for this season.
Let's go ahead, Bill.
Well, I was just going to say, I've been intrigued by Will Walsh for 2 years. I think he's been he's been a real valuable utility kind of guy in a number of different ways, be it starting when called upon, mid reliever when called upon. A couple of times he's been in there to try and close out a game. This is over the last couple of seasons. Play some first base. I think he's been invaluable for Nebraska baseball. And it seems like in the times when it's been most critical, he's had some of his best games. And obviously this is a critical game because you got to win. And I would think that everybody but Horn and Brockett are available today. I thought, Caleb Clark giving him a couple innings. I mentioned him yesterday, going a couple innings the other day. That's, I think, one of his longest outings of the season because he's been injured. That gives them, some other people that they can utilize as they try to piece together pitching if they win today and then play North Carolina a couple times. So anyway, I think Will Walsh has been an understated MVP for a couple of years now.
Well, Huskers will go to work against Cade Crossland, and OU's been pretty salty with what they've done offensively, and Nebraska's defense stay where it's been, at least, yesterday. I thought what the play at third base made by Nebraska, and then I just dropped the name. He's shifted over. Stokes, usually at second, but at third. His attack and play really, I thought, provided some momentum here for Nebraska. It's just one play, but it was a hell of a play on the third baseline where he barehanded it on a little nubber and made an incredible throw and beat Holy Cross's speed demon by about a half step. And Nebraska, we'll see if they can continue their trek here in Chapel Hill. We get our starting 5 shout-outs going with the Average Joe Sports Show Sunday Live. Bill Dolman, Gary Sharp, Chris Schmidt, Elijah on assignment. Justin is in. Good to have you, Justin. And Walter, just south of Philly, saying what's up. Corn Raider is here. And he is a fan is of Mississippi over Missouri. Missouri is the dirtiest state ever. Wow. Uncle Larry is here. Game Dog says, what's up? We have more comments coming in, and I think Brian Snitley is here. Happy Will Walsh says over under 5.5 runners left on base this morning. Wow. I'm going to go over.
Yeah, come on.
I'm going to go over on left on base, but if you're a Nebraska baseball fan, hopefully Oklahoma's numbers are minimal because no one's on base, right? So Tiger Sharp back in, says he was not an average Joe. He ran a 4.7 240 15 years ago. Mike is here on assignment in Oregon. NASCAR Eric is on assignment. NASCAR Eric, send a tweet out, brother. He's in Chapel Hill for round 2. Which is great. You have Jeff Snitley, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty, back in. The other Dave is here. Captain, good to have you. He is checking in. Michael Barrett, also in from Carolina. MK is here. Bill Dolman is checking in the stream on the Average Joe Sports Show. Black Hills Brennan is here, which is nice to have. Black Hills Brennan has said, I've now started telling my boss that I have to leave on assignment. My success rate of getting leave approved has increased substantially.
Nice.
Who coined the phrase on assignment? I know that the morning news shows, when they send a contributor out to a major earthquake or some sort of war-torn country, so-and-so's on assignment, but I just thought we should apply it over the years to the vacation part, or you got to go to a wedding, or it's family time somewhere, all that. I'll be on assignment much of July, but I will check in from a different time zone.
I appreciate the guys in the stream who are going to try and utilize being on Average Joe time if they're late for work. Good luck with that. Does not work for my students when they're late for class. It only works for the instructor and us on this show. So,
full disclosure, Sharpie and Billy D were ready to go. I'd asked permission. Hey, can I go to the can real quick? How quick can you be? And to be quite frank, it was one of those Naked Gun type Ps that took far too long.
It was also one we didn't have a mix-up. There are legendary television stories. You have your microphone, and usually in the director's studio, they control your microphone. Well, you also can turn it off, and some people have gone to the bathroom. And so they're going to the bathroom, and they leave their mic up, and the news is still going on, and rushing waters.
The old Frank Drebin, right?
Yes.
So we'll get into some of the 7-on-7 stuff. Was reading our
real quick. Let me just. I'm down here in the Hattiesburg area, and the regional game yesterday. Real quick on baseball between Alabama and Southern Miss was a slugfest. Like I think it was 6-5. Southern Miss eliminates Alabama, which is a really big deal down here for a Sun Belt team to eliminate an SEC team. But the 11 runs scored, I think there were 5 or 6 home runs in the game, and Southern Miss stays alive with a Hunter Helixos type RBI, 2 RBI single in the bottom of the 8th to eliminate the Tide. So there's renewed life down here in Hattiesburg because baseball is king down here.
Yeah.
There's no question. Football, they're trying to get that going. Basketball's no man's land. But baseball is all important. They had an 18-game winning streak. But a buddy of mine down here was so disgusted with Southern Miss's performance in day one when they lost to Columbia that he decided, I'm not going to the game on Saturday. I just can't do it. So he gave away his tickets. And there will be one of those. It will be one of those talked about Southern Miss wins. He's an alum and everything. One of those that talk about forever. And they'll say, hey, were you there? I was. No. Yeah,
he went goodwill hunting. I got to go see about a girl and just slide the ticket over.
Yeah, it was an amazing game, and good on the Golden Eagles to eliminate the Tide. So anyway,
well, the Huskers 7-on-7 gets going next weekend. Of course, Nebraska's got some of their folks on campus this weekend for future classes for Nebraska football. We'll go there for a little bit. And, it's copycat. Other programs are going to follow suit here, fellas, with what Nebraska is doing. But Nebraska, the first through the door here with their partnership with Adidas, their partnership with Huddle this weekend, with some of the high-profile 2027 kids that are in to hear from Matt Rule and Dylan Raiola. You can replicate it, but Nebraska, I think, has a chance to really separate themselves just with their knack for transparency, but also their knack for just the ability to connect, for lack of a better term. I think the charm will be turned on for sure, but I think Nebraska moving forward here is on to something with their Adidas partnership and the 7-on-7s. Because listen, I think Nebraska is going to continue to try and mine and develop the lines of scrimmage, right? Those are non-negotiable in the Big Ten and moving forward in college football. But this month, as we're into June, is going to pay some monster dividends. You'd have to think for Nebraska moving forward when they continue. They've already landed 1 5-star at quarterback. When they continue to go after some of the who's who talent-wise at wide receiver, at running back, you get some defensive backs. I think this is going to be a monster month for Nebraska that you'll see the payoff here in maybe the 2027 class, how they finish out 2026, but years beyond if things go well this fall for Nebraska.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm not a big fan of the 7-on-7, but I get it. That's the best way to evaluate players in the offseason. I'm a big watch them in person when the pads come on, because guys are different when they get hit or when they put on pads. But this is necessary for the evaluation period and to get more kids to campus. I would love to see a camp where they actually put the pads on.
How good would that be?
And they go at it. But I think that Adidas putting their name on this and Nebraska, and there's a lot of logistics go into this. So kudos to Nebraska, because this is not easy to pull off. I do think it might not give you early results, but it might, as you were alluding to, Schmitty, give you later results. I just think it's Nebraska's staying ahead of the curve, and it's a copycat thing. I mean, people are gonna try and pull off the same thing, but if Nebraska gets what they want and that is established, and we know when you get kids on campus and you take them through the Osborne Legacy Center, you take them into Memorial Stadium, you show them different things, the kids' eyes get pretty wide. So it is what it is. I'm not a big 7-on-7 guy. I know that it has blown up all over the country and it's gotten bigger in the state. It's kind of interesting. There's two guys two former Huskers that I know really well here in Omaha. Mm-hmm. Abdul Muhammad, who is a big 7-on-7 guy with Omaha Central. Okay. They have a really, really good 7-on-7 program. And then I got Matt Verzal on one side, who is a lineman who hates 7-on-7, because linemen don't really, how do you evaluate linemen on 7-on-7? You know? Yeah. So that's why I would love to see camps that you put the pads on, but I hope Nebraska gets some guys, at least they can get them back in the fall. But it should be a lot of fun. Heck, Cam Newton might be here next week. Yeah. I mean, his 7-on-7 team is going to be here, and you never know. Remember the last time we saw anything with Cam Newton and his 7-on-7 team? He was fighting.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's pretty vicious. Who in their right mind thinks it's a good idea to go after a 6'5", 260-pound dude that's still yoked?
Those people that have a lot of yingling in them.
Well, we need to find somebody to bring some yingling.
Well, it does. You know what? So another thing, I mean, I think there's some part of it that there is some good to 7-on-7, but there is also some bad. I've seen it in Omaha because they have, 7-on-7 has taken off. Man, I've heard players talk crazy to other coaches. I mean, it gets nasty. And you're like, okay, this ought to be really interesting. But
there's a fine line between open dialogue and then disrespect, correct?
Yeah, you can't, while you're talking, grab your crotch. That's what my mom taught me.
That's a no-no. That's a son. You're gonna watch this next 7 series. So
I remember Anthony Peeler doing that up and down the Bob Devaney Sports Center floor one year when he went off with the Missouri Tigers about 92 or somewhere, just going up and down the floor, grabbing said regions and telling Nebraska fans what to do with it. But anyway, that's an aside in a memory of days gone by. Do they still have football camps where they actually do put pads on?
Yes.
I mean, everything is all 7-on-7 anymore.
I think they don't put full pads on. I think they do shoulder pads and helmets.
I just haven't. All I ever see is 7-on-7s, and that's it. I never hardly ever see people.
Well, that's why. So there's a thing called the locker room camp in Omaha that just wrapped up this past week. That's full pads where it is instruction, and then you play games. And I think Lincoln has adopted that as well. But every evaluator will tell you, I don't want to see a video of a place kicker in a city park hitting 60 to 65-yard field goals. I want to see them with pads on when there's a rush on. Look at quarterbacks. And I get it. Like, for example, Trey Taylor looks great throwing on air. Okay, you can see some stuff there. But guys are different when they get hit. Okay? Guys are different when they put on the pads. That's where I like to evaluate. So I'm a big game film, look at the grades, talk to teachers and coaches, evaluator if I was a recruiter. And then I would have to be on the side. I get it. It's 7-on-7. It's the summer. This is how we evaluate kids nowadays. You just have to be really good at your evaluation of projecting a skill player that what you see without pads on will also work when you have pads on and you're playing much quicker at the college level.
Does it translate, right?
Yeah,
the million-dollar
word.
question. Million-dollar question, does it translate? And some of the best are 50% in their career. But the pad part, very real. And fellas, as we wind it down, and a quick hit today, are we going to be
coming up? That's why it's a quick hit.
yes. Nebraska and OU. Thought on, and I was alluding to this, our old buddy Sip had his Sunday morning column and caught that this morning. And are you guys going to get an advanced order / copy of the Bill Moos book? I'm intrigued. I mean, there were some nuggets there. I liked the Moose. He was always just great to me, but we'd always kind of talk about the Pirate, and that's, one of his big time hires, obviously, with his tenure as athletic director at some different stops. Of course, he brought Hoiberg here. He hired Will Bolt. He almost got Pat Casey to Lincoln. So the Moose was connected, and I'm intrigued on several fronts about upward pressure that was talked about on Nebraska by the Big Ten. Interested there. The Phil Knight love-hate, as Sip just described it, with Bill Moose's time at Oregon. But I think it might be a pretty good read.
He's an old school guy. I remember I was doing a football game. I was doing Big Sky football, I think, one year. I think it was Big Sky games. And I'm driving with my partner. I think we landed in Salt Lake City, and we're driving to do a game at Idaho or Eastern Washington. I don't remember exactly the logistics. But my partner had coached in the Big Sky and Idaho and had played college football with Bill Moos. And I'm not exactly sure where Moos played. Idaho, someplace.
He was at Washington State, I think.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, my partner for these games played college ball with him. And he says, I know, Nebraska's they're going to get rid of their athletic director, and they're going to hire a new one. And he said, the guy they need to hire is Bill Moos. I'm like, how do you know all this? And I don't know how he knew all of it. This was probably a September, October, sometime during football season. And he told me Nebraska's going to get rid of the other case of the flu, Eichhorst, and
Terminator.
And he said the guy they need to hire is going to be Bill Moos. I'm like, okay. I don't know whether he knew something or if it was a premonition, but he said the guy Nebraska needs is this guy. I'm like, so
AD, coaches, for the most part, were able to handle his hands-off approach. Not all, but most. But they all loved him. And talking to Leach back when Moos was hired, he was like, "Oh, we all wanted to work for him because he just leaves you the hell alone."
Right.
And
what would his tenure have been like if it hadn't been COVID and he had to have been in the not just the office more, but at least in Lincoln more? As opposed to have been able to go retreat to his ranch and operate out of there during that time.
His style was always hands off, and I think there are some folks who need supervision, and I think that was the problem.
I think he enjoyed being the athletic director at Nebraska too much, whether it be the social part of it or the financial part of it, because they spent a lot of money. And then Trev had to come in and he was Doge. It just makes it. I tell you what. If you look back at Moose's tenure, and you asked the question, Bill, about COVID, how would Moose's tenure be different if Frost would have succeeded? Because Moos did exactly what everybody wanted him to do.
Yep.
Hire Frost, and then he kind of went, "Whoa, look what I got! I'm swinging it. I got Fred Hoiberg," and we went, "Whoa!"
Yeah.
But then things got sideways, and I think then he got run over by the Frosts in the football department, and he let them have too much leeway. And then you saw the Oklahoma debacle, and I don't think he was. I don't think he was geared towards standing up for himself until it was too late. And I don't think he did a very good job, because Trev struggled with this. Dannon appears to have this mastered, is trying to connect all the pieces from the chancellor to the president to the athletic director to the rest of the university to the athletic department. And I thought Moos, it was almost like he was putting out fires, or his, other people around him were putting out fires around him that he couldn't control. And then he would be absent, I mean, he would not spend as much time in Lincoln. So I think he enjoyed the social aspect of it. I think he tried to run Nebraska athletics where he tried to make everybody happy.
Yeah.
And, he was fighting for Nebraska. He pissed off the Big Ten. I will tell you that if Moos was the athletic director of Nebraska, we would not have a good relationship with the Big Ten. I mean, the Big Ten was like, "Hey, this is great that you're leaving." I would be very curious. And, and Bill had a really good relationship with all the media. There's some questions out there that, he's been gone for a while. Yeah. Whatever he did in his personal life, that's his. I would just like to know, and I think I think this is in the book, the abrupt departure. Okay. Because that happened quick. And then why was there a non-disclosure agreement signed between the parties that were involved? Why was it so abrupt that you had to sign something like that you within days had a moving truck and you were driving across 80 back home to Washington?
It's fascinating, right? I mean, what's the True Hollywood story with the timeline?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, poof, you're moving back to your ranch. And the Big Ten relationship part is you get some ego involved, where you might be right, but you're not in charge. Yeah. So you've got to learn to play nice.
Yeah. You guys, so we've all, so I think, I'm not going to speak for you, Bill, but I think we're in agreement that Bill Byrne is the greatest athletic director in my lifetime, ever covering Nebraska or being involved with Nebraska. Do you feel the same way?
I think not just at Nebraska, but I think in collegiate athletics, he's in the top 5 all time.
Bill had to come in. Bill had to come in and make the transition to take the mom and pop athletic department into the next century, and it riled some people. But I thought Bill, whether it be relationships with people that worked for him, whether they were inside the athletic department or they were taking your money in the parking lot, he knew those people. I think he was more accessible. And then we went through the run of past athletic directors. Everybody has an ego in that role. You have to. That's how you get to that. But I think having too big of an ego can hurt you being the athletic director at Nebraska. At Ohio State, hey, you can have a monster ego because that's a monster athletic program. At Nebraska, you have to have an ego, but it can't swarm the athletic department. Yeah. And I think that's where Dannon is different from the last 2 athletic directors. Dannon has an ego, but you would never know it. He's not going to be a guy that like, hey, I'm in the power chair, come and kiss the ring. Where I thought that Bill, maybe not as professional, kind of like that, being in the power chair, where Trev, that was a big deal for Trev to be in the power chair. I think with Dannon, Dannon likes flying under the radar. And I think that might be the most ideal way to be an athletic director at Nebraska.
The thing about Dannon is it's not just lip service about stewardship. He believes in it. He will talk about what's going on, what needs to happen. But ultimately, for him to do his job well, he's got to make sure his coaches have what they need for sure, but he's listening to them. I think the communication part of Dannon's phenomenal, and he's comfortable enough in his own skin that he's not the guy that's reminding you, yeah, I'm your boss all the time. Yeah. He just goes to work.
I think the thing about Bill Byrne, I probably said this on our show before, the fact, look, he came here an outsider. I think he probably wanted to have that ego and wanted to have that power chair, but quickly over time realized there's another guy here that I am not going to supplant. And that was Tom Osborne.
Yeah.
So Bill Byrne's understanding of Tom and Tom's power, and that Tom was not going to, whether Tom wanted that power or not, it was given to him. He earned it. Nebraskans revered him for it. And he had the success that never failed. So for Bill Byrne to come in and come to that understanding and that those two guys could coexist in a way that they did through the 90s is really, that'd be a great book too, is how Bill Byrne and Tom Osborne coexisted together with two very different personalities, but had the same mission to, for Nebraska to succeed. Tom's mission was for football, and his personality and integrity and character umbrellaed the entire athletic department. And Bill Byrne, with his, and I mean this in a healthy way, his ego and his intellect and his skill set as an athletic director coexisting under that umbrella was really remarkable. And to do it in this state where you don't have a Phil Knight like, Oregon has now or something like that. But I think Bill Byrne was a great athletic director, one of the best of all time. And Texas A&M was the benefactor of his time there, no question about it. But yeah.
Here's what doesn't happen without Bill Byrne and Tom Osborne, the oil and the water. You have a change with Devaney stepping down. Here comes Bill Byrne, and you have a new boss. So you better up your game. And Osborne absolutely did, not only with some staff changes, but they went from really good, bordering on great, to great. Part of that, in my opinion, is in response to, well, I've got a new boss, because they were worried about their gigs after the 9-3 1990 season.
Yeah.
Knowing that this change was coming. So while they probably coexisted and weren't exchanging holiday cards, they were great for one another.
Yeah. How, at the end of the day, how do we judge athletic directors' success? Like, is it how much money they win? How much money they raise, what they do to the facilities, or is it always about, are your teams winning? Is the hire that you made, are they winning?
It's winning to me, because I think if you get the wins, you're going to go get the money. Right now, you've got a challenge to go raise dollars, I would think, because you're not winning like you used to be.
I think there's a generational aspect to it. If you have an athletic director that has an athletic background, like a Bill Moos or a Bob Devaney or a Tom Osborne, and you have success with your coaches and great relationships and great chemistry and camaraderie, that's success. But when you've got this new era of analytics, shall we say, the business acumen, then it's, are we bringing in the money, and is there a building that's going to get built or renovations be done that my name can go on? Yeah. And I think Bill Moos is, like I said, was much more old school, but he had adapted to the times, understanding, that there's money and this is a corporation now. Moos and Byrne are similar in that they both were
Yeah.
and were antagonistic to their respective conferences. With Nebraska, remember when the Big 12 came into being, they told us as announcers from the Big 8 to the Big, this is not a merger. We are inviting these teams into the Big 8. This is not a merger. Oh, by the way, we're moving the headquarters to Dallas. And Nebraska was 11-1 every vote. And Nebraska was the one vote because Bill Byrne could see where that train was going. Yeah. And it went from Kansas City to Dallas, and everything was Texas centric, but Bill Byrne was fighting for Nebraska 11-1, 11-1, 11-1. And Bill Moos, very similar. Nebraska got invited into the Big Ten, but he was still, and was a quiet voice, but he was still trying to whisper as loud as he possibly could to get Nebraska attention in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
The difference is you go into the Big 12 on the heels of championships, and everyone gangs up against you to start getting their pint of blood, so you're not as powerful. And then you move in, if you're the Moose, to the Big Ten, where you've not lived up to expectations, so the conference is probably a little pissed at you, yet you're still piping up.
Yeah,
different playing field.
Yeah. By the way, in Chapel Hill, things are not off to a good start.
No,
it's kind of avoiding talking about it.
Walsh had a comebacker that he was unable to field cleanly, safe at first. Rocket shot to short, knocked down. First and second, bloop to center. Bases loaded. Here's Rob Childress. Bases loaded, no one out, and Nebraska is going to have to start having some of Jobu's rum here shortly.
Hey, this might be this is a good either Schmitty or Bill. You brought this up about Moose's tenure because when he got here, he hired the people that they wanted, but then there was COVID toward kind of like smack dab in the middle of his tenure. This would be a good show that maybe this is a good summer show because it's 5 years ago of COVID, of what if there wasn't COVID, what Nebraska football would be like, because it wasn't handled very well. You had players that were all over the place, and just the upheaval and Nebraska trying to navigate it, and how important the 2020 season was going to be. I know you just rolled your eyes, Schmitty. I don't know if you want to play the what if, but I do think
infield hit for Oklahoma. 1-0. That's not yelling at you. One got past the shortstop. It's 1-0.
Because also another part of the Moose tenure is he did, because they needed it for the longest time, they got the New Osborne Legacy Complex started, but then COVID hit and it got delayed. What if that was done sooner? Because now we're seeing the benefits. Rule is reaping the benefits of having that facility for guys that are currently in the program. So I think it's a fair discussion about what if COVID would not have existed, where would Nebraska football and Nebraska athletics be today? And maybe they'd be in a worse spot. Maybe they'd be in a better spot. Maybe they'd be in the same spot, which gives you three options.
But what door you picking?
But probably guys, to have that head football coach and that athletic director, COVID was the worst thing that could have happened to them, and having the tools to properly manage those situations.
I circle that sentiment 1,000%, because it gave you a chance to reassess what's going on, but then you started the fight where you had the same take as Ohio State, but not the clout as Ohio State, and then you got offended.
Yeah,
just trying to stick up for doing football, and that really was the grenade pin with the league. And then here came future schedules complete with two middle fingers.
I think you mentioned it earlier, though, that he made the hire that everybody wanted him to make, and that was bringing Scott Frost on board. But then he gave the kids the keys to the car and didn't pay attention to how they were driving it.
Yeah,
there was no adult supervision. They were allowed to do way too much without I don't think they were capable of handling the responsibility, and maybe Central Florida, they can do that. But I think there was a little too much laissez-faire, hands off from the AD. I hired you. Here you go. Have fun with it, boys.
I'll say this in his defense.
That's the problem.
Every coach Moos had hired previously, he didn't have to babysit. I mean, he didn't have to be as eccentric as the Pirate was. Pirate went and won. Bellotti went and won at Oregon. Whoever was at Montana won. They were playing for national championships at Montana. So, and I'm sure trying to get out of Central Florida to your next big gig. And I think, your AD, you're probably on pretty good behavior trying to climb the ladder.
Well, if the guy's trying to sell a book, maybe he ought to come on the Average Joe Sports Show and talk about it.
I'll give him a shout. We'll see if we can't get the Moose on here in the next couple of weeks. Sound good?
I'm for it. He is, Sip will maintain a relationship with him. But they had a really good relationship when Sip was at the Journal-Star. Moose had a good relationship with the majority of the media. He was always very accommodating, except for it turned when the famous night at the PBA when he's sitting in his suite and the lights are off and he's wearing this mangled old sweatshirt and jeans watching a Nebraska basketball game. And over in the media area where the media sit for Nebraska basketball, you've got this World Herald photographer that's got this gigantic lens that is shooting pictures of Moose sitting in his suite. And that picture was widely circulated. And after that, his relationship with the majority of the media was never the same. He wasn't as accessible as he used to be. But he's also a guy, I do give Moose credit. When you'd go to the Big Ten media days, he'd be the guy that would hold court in the lobby. And remember, he'd say, well, I don't know if 6 is, I think we're at 6. And we'd all be like, what the hell are you talking about?
He was awesome at after holding court, maybe sitting down at the bar with you too, and having a Coors Light. So,
yeah.
He's a wine guy. Long story short, the Moose got Papa Al, gave Papa Al tickets for Carson's birthday for the Michigan State-Nebraska game. So. That was, and of course, Papa Al wasn't shy about, hey, are you using your tickets on Saturday? He was good at making you feel good.
Yeah, he liked showing people a good time for Nebraska.
Yeah. 3 errors in the first. Nebraska down 3-0. 2 hits, 3 errors. Some wood to chop for Nebraska.
Is this Cranek's kids game or what?
No. Yeah, they don't. I don't know. Walsh isn't missing many bats, but also Nebraska's not helping Will Walsh.
No, not at all. Some plays.
Sharpie. I mean, they basically Oklahoma basically had 11 outs that inning.
They did, and some of us in travel ball are used to 11 out innings. So. Bill, Sharpie, appreciate y'all, brother, guys, and we'll holler next time, and appreciate all of you for spending time with us here on the Average Joe Sports Show Sunday Live. Like and subscribe on YouTube, and jump on AJ Sports Radio, AJ Sports Pod. Follow those. Catch Gary and Matt on 1620, 6 to 10, Monday through Friday. Find us tomorrow at 4 with the Average Joe Sports Show on the Average Joe Network. We'll talk to you next time. We'll see if Nebraska can, dig out of some problems here and keep playing baseball. Fellas, be good.
Yep.
See ya.